Greetings everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Challenges Guide. Now, for those of you who are completely new to this series, the Weekly Challenges are a set of 5 races, usually going up Thursday night, Friday morning, depending on where you are. These consist of 4 races that can already be found within the game itself, with a 5th unique one that usually is curated specifically for that week only. And the purpose of these guides is to give you an overall overview of the events themselves, the cars you need, the tracks to take place at, the laps, as well as if there's any penalties or any special things needed. So we kick things off with the European Sunday Cup 400. And as the name implies, the suggested performance points is 400. This is a 2-lap race that takes place at Sardegna Road Track B. And the cars required need to be a road car from Europe, as the name implies. So here's the field, no penalties, so nothing to worry about here. And really, you don't have to have something completely at 400 pp. It's really not suggested, so you can kind of go crazy with whatever. As you can see, there's nothing that you can't really choose there. I'm going to go with something a little out of nowhere, and that's the Lancer Stratos here. Haven't used it for anything, so why not? And as for the tips for this particular race, a wide entry and exit for these corners. The way this track kind of flows, I find it kind of requires a lot of this lately, especially with how the curves are and how you get exits out of the corner. Also beware the AI overbraking basically everywhere on this track. It's especially bad in the final few sections, so overtaking is going to be a bit of a challenge. Next up, the Japanese Clubman Cup 550. And as it implies there, 550 being the suggested performance points for this here. This is a 3-lap race that takes place at Autopolis International Racing Course. And the car you will need has to be a road car professionally tuned and from Japan. The entrance name suggests. There's the field. And no penalties for this either. And for the car I'm going to pick is actually going to be this Lancer Evolution final that I did for the Evolution Cup there. Same as before, racing hards, and basically a default setup that mimics the Group 4 car, basically for easier handling stuff. So, tips for the race, again, wide entry and exit. This is another track that I found requires quite a bit of that very often, more so for how narrow it is. But also, speaking of that narrow, you'll need some precision through turns 3 through 5 and 10 through 13. These are those winding corners there, and they require a lot of finesse and throttle management. Next up is the Hypercar Parade. This is a 6-lap race taking place at Red Bull, the track that was featured last week in those challenges. This requires obviously a road car. You can't see the parentheses I'm doing, but I say that because as you can see, the Vulcan is in the field. No penalties for this. And I'm going to choose the counter to that Vulcan, which is the Ferrari FXXK. Racing cars, nothing else, and good to go. Tips for this race. So the car I've chosen is one of 2 choices I'd recommend just to basically get an easy win. That's the Ferrari FXXK and the Aston Martin Vulcan. Obviously, if you can afford, or even get either, because that invite, then please get them, because you can pretty much dominate these events with the 2 cars. And be careful on throttle exiting turn 2. It's a very tight corner and very easy to spin, especially in this car if you get it wrong. So be mindful of that. Next up, the World Touring Car 600. And of course, this event is a 5-lap race. And this takes place at Tokyo Expressway, specifically the south counterclockwise layout. Not to be confused with the other event And this it requires a car that is 600 performance points or less. You can't go above that. And no penalties, nothing else of note. So for my example, I'm going to choose the Lexus LC500 here. And racing hards, that's pretty much the only change I've made. No setups, basically running it as I did for a similar event. Now the tips for this particular race, depending on everyone else and my own experiences here, is to use or tune a car with good handling and power. As usual, the AI, especially as you get further up, will have very much a lot of power on the straights. So you gotta get into the corners. And speaking of the corners, beware of the AI breaking through the tunnels. They don't seem to have the confidence to have it on the throttle fully, so be careful if you're setting up overtakes, for example. It can get very tricky. And the special event to end things, the World Group C Racing Championship. And this is a bit of a big one. 8 laps around the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And of course, as usual, features the Group C cars. And no penalties, no wear multipliers or anything. So, since we're doing WSC, apparently as well, I've chosen to sell the Mercedes accordingly. Racing soft tires, default, that's it. Now, that car is my choice, but you don't have to make the same choice because, to start off the tips, any Group 1 car will do. You know, whether it's the Group C cars, the LP1 hybrids, the diesels, whatever suits you the best. Go for it. Soft tires, but depending on whatever choice you get, best option. Grip, speed, all that stuff. Don't need to tell you too much about that. Beware of the AI breaking through El Rouge. This is where you're going to gain a lot of time and a lot of positions. So just keep on the throttle. Be very careful, but keep it matted. And of course, if this is all too difficult for you, as I suspect it will be for many, lower the difficulty if you have to. Don't be afraid to do that. You're here to have fun, and if you're not having fun, make the adjustments as you need to. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope this has helped you out, whether you've just woken up to this event or seeing this for the first time. If you liked it, give this video a like, and if you want to see more of these, subscribe as I continue to make these throughout the year. That's it for me, and I will see you guys in the next video.